Hi everybody, it's been a while, but we're back. We've been busy working away on something behind the scenes, so that's why we've taken a bit of a break, and we're here to tell you what we've been working on. So, hi Andrew, it's been a while.
Hello Abi, yes it has been a while, but as you say, we've been working hard in the background on a really exciting project that we may or may not tell you about. Is it a secret?
I don't think so, not now. We've
No.
kind of, we've been putting it out there anyway, so we may as well share it.
I suppose. And it is very relevant to what we're talking about today.
So I don't know how many of you out there know or have looked into us before, but both me and Andrew are from an education background. In a previous life to this one, I was a primary school teacher for 10 years, and I did do some work in middle schools as well. So I've worked with children from 4 right up to about 13, 14.
Yeah, and I've worked in secondary schools and in the independent sector for about 20 odd years, but always at the upper end of schools, as well as being involved with management, etc.
And we've both in this role, haven't we, worked with both children that are struggling with mental health and parents that want to support their children, but also we've worked with a lot of teachers. I think I've had a lot of teachers come to me outside of school for extra support for stress and anxiety, depression, all those things. So we decided really it would be a good idea to start putting a schools program together so that we can actually go into schools and work with teachers, because I think one thing that we have found from our own experience and from knowing other teachers is that there actually is very little mental health training for teachers, whether that's their own mental health or that of their students. There's no real training involved. This is one thing that I found as a teacher. Actually, I could see which children in my class, even as young as 5, were struggling, but I had no idea what to do about it. I found that really frustrating, because whatever classroom I was in, there was generally at least 3 children that you could see that were just starting to struggle. So it might not be major issues, but just that low level anxiety or worry. And I had no idea where to even begin with tackling that, because they weren't bad enough to get CAMHS involved or get any outside agency involved. And I felt like as a teacher, I should be able to do something about that at that point before it got to a crisis point.
As you say, CAMHS is a great organisation. It's great, but it's actually quite stretched, and appointments can be you can wait quite a while to get them. A lot of the research into these things and anecdotal evidence about mental well-being amongst pupils is pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it has increased somewhat over that time. But
I know excuse me, I know that my private inquiries for young people has increased dramatically since COVID, particularly not really through COVID, but post-COVID going back to school. There's a lot of children that are really struggling to get back to normal, I think is the best way to put it. They're really anxious about still getting ill or germs or passing things on. And yeah, I've seen quite an increase in interest in that support.
Yeah, and of course it's not only the pupils in school, it's the staff, it's the teachers, it's the other staff in school that have also had the problems during the COVID time. But as we sort of hinted at the start, there's actually some quite shocking, well, I find it shocking, research into the mental well-being of teachers. And there's a report that came out in, was it 2020 in Scotland, a review of supporting teachers' mental health and emotional well-being, an evidence review. In that, there was something like about 75% of all teachers said that they had some form of mental health problem, i.e., if it's stress or anxiety or constant worrying or even panic attacks and whatever. And that's, though the review was from Scotland, it was a review of literature from around the world. And it seems to be roughly the same sort of percentages, no matter which country you're in.
And I actually think that will be underestimated as well, because I think a lot of teachers just assume that that is a normal part of their role, and that they're supposed to feel stressed, and it is a stressful job.
Yeah.
And that it's okay to feel like that. And also I think there'll be teachers who don't actually acknowledge or recognise some kind of label to it. And I'm not one for labelling mental health really, but I think a lot of teachers don't recognise that they're stressed. And that's me speaking from experience. I spent 10 years in teaching, not actually realising that I was really stressed. I just I suffered with headaches, migraines, stomach aches, and I never ever put any of those things down to stress. And in the end, that's exactly what they turned out to be. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of teachers that are struggling with those sorts of things that don't put it down to any kind of mental health issue, because it's just part of the job.
Yeah, it goes with the job and all that sort of thing. Just as a sort of anecdotal thing is I had all those types of things, and I don't think there was one of my colleagues that didn't, to a greater or lesser extent. But one of the reasons why I left teaching, which was about 12 years ago now, is because I had a health issue. And when I went to get tested, they said, well, it's not cancer you've got, but you need to relax, you need to have a less anxious time, you need to have a less stressful job. One of the reasons why they were talking about that is because I didn't fall into any of the other categories of what might have caused it. And I thought, well, and he said, can you not go part-time? And I thought about that for about 2 seconds. And I thought, there's no way you can go part-time. I mean, you might, in theory, be part-time, but you would definitely still be doing the full-time.
That's exactly what I did. So I went part-time to reduce my stress. And then the 2 days that I wasn't in school, I was just working at home. So I was just earning less money and still working 5 days a week.
Yeah, I know. It's not just the teacher who then has the stress, etc., because that does pass on to the pupils.
Most teachers, I think, would disagree with that, and I certainly would have done, because I think I believed that I was very good at hiding my stress and putting a mask on and being all smiley and happy and calm in front of the children. And I was good at that, but I still think there are things that you don't realise, whether it be your language, your body language, your facial expressions, how you deal with things that are unexpected, where children will still see you reacting in an unhelpful way, and they learn from that all the time. Yeah,
and it will, even in the most subtle way, affect the relationship that is going on there, because in many ways that the last person to realise that they have the stress or the anxiety, etc., is the person who's suffering from it.
Yeah. I think you were saying about a study as well earlier. The one that I was reading was from the TESS, the Times Educational Supplement. And that was saying that 1 in 3 teachers have no mental health training at all.
Yeah.
So that, and I think quite often teachers just assume that when we're talking about mental health and we want to promote mental health in schools, it's all about the pupils. But actually, there's no mental health training for teachers either. And you only have to look at the rates which teachers are leaving the profession, and really early on in their career as well, a lot of them.
Yeah.
To show that stress is having and anxiety is having a massive impact, because they're not taught to manage their stress before they go into the job. And I'm not just talking about resilience either, because resilience is a word that's thrown around schools a lot, but resilience is just about getting back up when you've been knocked down. Actually, to have really good mental strength is about not getting knocked down in the first place, to have the mental strength and confidence to do your job and not let it beat you down sometimes, because it's it can be quite a thankless job. It's an amazing career to be in, but it's hard graft, and I think it can be a job that you feel like you're never really achieving in a lot of the time, or there's always something more to do. It just feels never ending. You've got a to-do list that never ever ends, and I think it can be quite draining. And teachers are not taught how to manage their thoughts or emotions around that, and it just peaks at some point, or they plummet, and they can't, they find it really difficult to manage.
That's right. And again, a little story, but it sort of illustrates this in a sense. Having gone through all this sort of positive psychology training, and if I knew half of what I know now, I would have been a much better teacher.
Yeah, me too.
And I dare say the pupils would have had a much better experience, even though I think they had quite a good one. But
and it's not about being a nice person or a good teacher or knowing your subject. It's not about that sort of thing, is it? Because I know that things like behaviour strategies in schools, and the way that I used to manage behaviour, and lots of teachers manage behaviour, do things like lower children's self-esteem or make them quite socially anxious. We almost by accident can promote those things because we're totally unaware of the language that we use and how that impacts children. I think what you were saying earlier about the focus is normally on children when it comes to mental health schemes in schools, isn't it? But actually, the person that they learn the most from is the person standing in front of them. You're the biggest resource. As a teacher, you are the best resource those children have, and they spend a lot of time with you and they learn an awful lot from you. And yet we're only taught to deal with mental health as a teacher when it's at crisis point. And actually, in my opinion, and looking, and like you say, knowing what I know now, we should be teaching and demonstrating what good mental health looks like before they get to crisis point. We do it with physical health, don't we? We teach children how to be physically healthy. We promote PE. We talk about healthy eating. We don't wait for children to be really unhealthy and obese before we put things into place. And yet with mental health, that's just not the case. We don't teach children how to be mentally healthy. And that has to start with the teacher. Because if you're not a mentally healthy person yourself, you've got to practice what you preach, whether you're a parent or a teacher, because children will pick up on that all the time. And I guess that was the starting point for what we've been working on, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it's, if you've got low self-esteem, it's not long before the children realize you've got low self-esteem. They might not be able to put it in those words, but they know something along those lines. And we talked about various sort of how it exhibits itself. I mean, the language that is used. Again, Abi, a colleague of ours, she was telling me that her son, he was at primary school, and they've been doing mindset lessons.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I obviously know what mindset is. I don't know what a mindset lesson is, but they've been doing mindset lessons and talking about growth mindset and fixed mindset and so on, and how you can be, if you've got a growth mindset, if you put your mind to it, you can sort of at least attempt to be anything you want to be, etc., and not think you can't do that. And so she went around the class and she said, what do you want to be when you leave school? And, got various things from in the army to be a train driver, all those sort of the usual sort of things. And that her son said, I want to be an accountant. And she then said, well, you can't be an accountant because you're no good at maths. So he came back home and said to his mum, I'm not going to be an accountant anymore. And she said, why? And he said, because the teacher said I'm no good at it, no good at maths. So it's just we say things that
you don't say anything, even if you don't say anything, that sort of raise of your eyebrows or of your face gives a lot away. Children are very receptive. They know you much better than you think they do. They know exactly how to push your buttons and exactly what they can get away with, and they know what your face is saying, even if your words don't say it.
Yeah, definitely. And coming back to this idea that mental health and well-being is not really, there's actually been quite a lot of talk about it, but there doesn't seem to be much actually in the way of action. And it's interesting that in 2019, that there were 38.8 million working days lost through illness.
Yeah.
51% of that 38 million was due to stress, anxiety, mental health related problems.
Yeah, I can believe it. I know lots of teachers that have taken time off or have certainly been signed off with stress, even if they didn't want to be. Or they've kind of put it down to something else, but the doctors put it down as stress. And I think it's a stressful job. It is a stressful job. There's so much involved that people not in the job don't realise. But I guess our aim really is to teach the teachers how to look after their own mental health.
Yeah.
And then how to use that understanding to promote good mental health across the school. Because, there's all this talk in Ofsted now about a whole school wellbeing approach, but that's still very child focused, I think. The teachers still get left out of that a lot of the time. So we really do look at a whole school approach for everybody, and that's everybody from reception staff, dinner staff, students. We want everybody to be involved with that, because you don't know who your children are most comfortable talking to either. It might not always be the class teacher. It might be a TA or somebody in the lady, lunchtime supervisor, sorry. But it might be that member of staff. And actually, why wouldn't you want every member of your staff to be looking after their own mental well-being?
Yeah. And just in general terms, in business, it's now well known that the tone of the business environment is set from the top.
Yeah.
And so you could say that the teaching staff are, in terms of the pupils anyway, the top. And so the tone of how things are set is with them. But you're exactly right about the fact that the janitor might be the person that somebody only talks to, etc. So it's really important that you do have a whole school approach.
Well, I think talking of leadership as well, most people in leadership have come from a teaching role. And I think being in a leadership role to a teaching role is a whole different kettle of fish. And how much training and awareness are leaders given about how to lead other staff? Yes, okay, you might be used to managing your class or think you're good at managing your class well-being, and that's a whole different ball game when you've got a team of staff to look after. And that comes down to emotional intelligence, and again, knowing how to promote your staff well-being, because it feeds down. You've got to have good well-being at the top, management, governors, whoever that is, because it filters down. And if you want a good wellbeing approach across your school, it has to come from everywhere, and it has to start really with the leadership. You have to have leadership that are on board and that are practicing what they preach.
That's definitely true. And there are qualifications for like headship and the like. There's a lot of other leadership roles in a school, and the teacher themselves is a leader. The janitor's the leader. The other non-teaching staff are leaders. So, but you're right, it does trickle down, and then it can sort of have an osmotic effect on everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. I've been in several schools where the effect has not been good. If you've got management that does not, how do I put it, that's not good at promoting emotional well-being.
Mm-hmm.
You know about it. It puts everybody on edge, from the staff to the pupils to the parents even, and it really does filter through.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got to get it right from the management downwards. And I think if the management's on board, staff are more likely to be on board. If you've got staff on board, then pupils are going to be on board. And it's not about just having quick fire interventions either for just those children that are struggling, because that's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
You need that feeling to be promoted all the time, just in the way that you speak, rather than having to ram something into your curriculum, because let's face it, there's no time for that. You can't squeeze extra stuff into your school day. It needs to be in your language, in your body language, and for
Mm-hmm.
you to understand that as a teacher, so that your kids are picking up on that all the time, and so that you can pick them up on things as well. You know, if children, if you understand your own psychology, you will very quickly pick up on things in children that's low level, that's not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have the tools to deal with that and start that conversation and know how to go about it, rather than just see that you've got a child that's an anxious, worrying mess and not know where to start.
So we've outlined there things that go on all the time. So what is it we've been working on? How can we help?
So we developed something that is not just a one-off training course that people are going to sit there, mark books through and then forget about, because that's what happens with a lot of training courses. Mm-hmm. We have been working on sort of a year-long training and support package for staff. So half-day training every half term, ongoing support via email or drop-ins depending on where people are, making sure that teachers firstly understand their own mental health and are doing what they can to improve that, then to look at how that spreads out. So how to recognise things in children, how to talk to staff about their well-being, to check people are okay, how to move past COVID, you know, how to deal with those issues, how to start conversations, and then looking beyond that again, how to make this work across your whole school. What kind of things you can put in place as a school to promote your staff well-being, to make sure that leadership are on top of things, to make sure that children are happy, to make sure you've got the tools that you need. So it's a year-long support package. It's not just a one-off training, although we have been working on one-off training courses alongside that, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you are accountable to somebody as a school for 12 months and you've got somebody to sort of hold your hand through it, if you like, mm-hmm. and be there to answer questions if you've got a particular child or a member of staff that you're not quite sure about, or something crops up, if you know you've got somebody, a point of contact for that whole year, that's going to make a big difference to your school.
Yeah.
And it's working. It's not going in and telling schools what to do either. Teachers know what they're doing. Teachers are good at their job. So it's getting them to decide what they want their school to look like, how they want to feel in their job, and then us sort of putting plans in place for them to get to that point, isn't it?
Yeah. And what it also does is help people to feel they're valued within the school. And of course, if you feel you're valued there, you're much more likely to stay there. Yeah. And because you feel supported. And this is one way of doing it. And I can hear somebody saying now, but there's books and there's so many CPDs about this, that, and the other. Yeah, there are lots of books, but all that they will do is give you a sort of academic understanding of what mental health, well-being, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, etc. are. But it's only when you put it into practice that you start to realize what it is and how it works, and to sort of really take it to heart. Yeah. And that's actually where most of our job comes in. It's to help people when they are working in it, and have questions or suggestions, etc. And we're hoping to learn from this as well, because it's a two-way process, and it's great. And
well, every school's different. Every school is individual, as all the people in it are individual. So this is not something that's churned out the same to every school. It's very individualized, isn't it? Because every school's wants and needs are going to be completely different. So it's working with schools to work out what they want and need, and then how to put that into practice, and then holding them accountable and making sure that they're confident in doing that, and giving them what they need along the way, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm going to use a word I very rarely use, but I quite like using it every now and again. It's bespoke.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Bespoke. But yeah, and it's actually quite exciting, and I've enjoyed working through it. And like you say, Abi, it's not just going to be a set thing, because it works with different schools, but as we sort of navigate through the year, there will be twists and turns and changes. So it's a live thing.
Well, we're running it as a pilot scheme, aren't we, really, for the next 12 months. And one of the first things that anybody has asked me about this is about the money. And I know how strapped schools are for cash just in general. But what is brilliant about what we're offering is that you can use, I don't know what they have in Scotland, but you can use, there's money there for COVID catch-up that can be used. It's not a horrendous amount of money. You've got people premium as well, because this impacts people's mental well-being in the longer term. You can use those kind of funds to do this as well. And it's about prioritizing well-being. It's a big thing. We're prioritizing lots of things in school: behavior, catching up, attendance, all of those things. But actually, if you've got good well-being across your school, then all of those things will improve as well. And that has been proven, hasn't it?
Oh, definitely. And there's lots of research to show that, from Australia, the United States, from England, from Scotland, from Iceland, from other Nordic countries. That it's really a good investment. And I'm not trying to be a salesman here, but it is a really good investment, because
if you invest, even if you're a business, if you invest in your staff, then your business will do better. That's something that's well researched as well. If you invest in your staff and you've got happy staff, then your business will run better. Why wouldn't that be the same in school? If you invest in your staff and your management and your pupils, then everybody is going to be happier. And we already know when kids are happier, they're going to achieve better. The same goes for your staff. If you've got happy staff, they're going to achieve more. They're going to be more motivated, more enthusiastic, and that will have the same impact then on the pupils as well.
And it does have a financial knock on. I don't know how finances are specifically in England, but if you're an academy school and you've got your own funds, well, if you've got a number of teachers that are off, and they're off because of the mental health issues, then you've got to bring in supply teachers. They've got to be up to speed. So there's all sorts of knock-on effects, and that all costs money. And
there's an emotional impact to the class as well, because they don't respond as well in those situations unless you've got somebody there long term that's going to build rapport with them. That has an implication then on attainment, on success, all those other things as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's really important, but the main importance is for the individuals who are able to improve their mental well-being and know what to do if things are not quite working out for them. I think we'll leave it at that at the moment. Yeah. If you want to find out more about what we're doing, please get in touch with us. We'd be very happy to speak to you. Any way of communicating, Zoom, phone, email, come and visit.
It doesn't matter where you are either, because, well, UK preferably. But, you know, we can travel. These sessions can be done by Zoom. It doesn't matter if there's distance. So please don't worry if you're a long way from Edinburgh or Staffordshire. We are still working with schools outside of those areas as well.
So please do get in touch. So cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye.